Holland has Albright's osteodystrophy. From the very beginning, we knew that there was something going on. She was born early. She was premature and tiny for her gestational age. She was on a heart monitor, and she didn't hit any of her milestones on time, so we had early intervention with speech and PT and OT. She didn't eat well. Her speech is pretty far behind. She had fine motor delays. She has hearing loss in both ears, and then at around 4, we figured out that she also has a seizure disorder. I guess for her, the cognitive delay is probably the most significant one that impacts her sort of day-to-day life. Sometimes she comes across a bit just younger than maybe her peers that are around the same age. She has interests that are a little bit younger too. And she has some tendencies that are similar to youth with autism, for instance. So she doesn't always look people in the eye, or she can't always bear sounds being loud, that kind of thing. Both my husband and I, started hearing kind of early on from medical professionals first and then educational professionals later that her trajectory is that she's going to need guardianship. When you look at Holland on paper, you're going to need to be thinking about guardianship.
The ramifications of guardianship are they're extreme. When someone is placed under a guardianship, a full guardianship, a permanent, not emergency, a permanent guardianship, they're generally losing the right to contract, including the right to get married, the right to consent to medical treatment, the right to choose their place of domicile, the right to engage physicians, providers. I mean, they're losing a lot of rights that most adults don't even think about. Guardianship is the appointment of an individual over an adult who has been deemed incompetent because they lack the ability to make or communicate significant responsible decisions about their health and safety. Taking away the rights adults have and making them the legal equivalent of a child is essentially what it does. The number of people who have told me, my lawyer said I had to, my lawyer didn't tell me there were other options. Their friend told me, social workers sometimes, physicians, police have told family members that guardianship is the only way to get somebody treatment. And that's just not the case. Guardianship is not a one-size-fits-all. Lawyers don't even know that. A lot of lawyers don't. So that to me is another big problem.
People are just doing what they're told, right? Without thinking deeper about the consequence of obtaining guardianship. There's a misconception out there that guardianship will solve problems, every problem, or that it'll make things easier. There's got to be a shift in the conversation. That's why we go through like a list of alternatives basically under the law, starting with, the simple, do you want to sign a release of information form so that your mom can talk to the ophthalmologist, or a power of attorney, or an advance directive for healthcare, a psychiatric advance directive. And the American Bar Association has a great tool, actually, to try to help lawyers assess this when somebody comes to them saying, we need guardianship. You always need to look at all of the different options, especially when somebody's rights are at risk.
Supported decision making is a tool for people with disability to ensure that they have people in their life to help them make decisions, whether it be what college do you want to go to? Do you even want to go to college? What kind of car do you want to buy? Do you want to buy a house? Or even having a supporter help them come up with a budget and make sure that they're sticking to it. And I think talking with people and having input into the decisions that we make is critical for everybody. How it's different from guardianship is that supported decision making is a voluntary process. It's something that the person with the disability and the supporters come to together voluntarily, and nobody making them do it. Whereas guardianship comes through the court system, and you have a court telling you that you no longer have any rights. Somebody under guardianship has fewer rights than somebody that is in jail. And it is so hard to remove guardianship. We've had a lot of cases that have come through this office, and they've been very, very different as far as the situation. And it's been really fascinating. The young woman that was under guardianship, she wanted to have a debit card so that she could go put gas in her car. The court did not want the young woman to have a debit card because she believed the guardian and the conservator should be controlling that money. The guardian was totally fine with her daughter having a debit card. It was just the court that didn't want her to have it.
When we think about guardianship, that puts a limitation on people's ability to make decisions that could improve their outcomes in terms of education, in terms of employment, in terms of income, and their autonomy and well-being emotionally. When you don't have the ability to determine what it is that you'd like to do in life and to follow and pursue that, then that can really be oppressive. We're trying to teach children how to do the next thing in their life. Like, that's the goal of adults, moving children up through developmental phases. And we don't want to say like, okay, now you're technically an adult, we're going to impose guardianship and say, no, you're going to legally live as a child for the rest of your life. We want them to grow as adults, to make decisions for themselves that they can, knowing that they have resources and people behind them supporting them. I think what was impactful for me that comes out of my professional experience but also plays into my parenting is that I want my children to have the healthiest possible outcomes. I want them to have the happiest life they can have, and that means being able to choose for themselves what that life is going to look like, and that can produce healthier outcomes than if we were sort of making all of the decisions, telling our children, our adult children, both of them, what they need to do next or how they need to do it. It stunts growth rather than promotes growth. Holland is doing amazing. We are so thrilled with her progress. If we had listened to some of the developmental specialists from when she was little, we would not be in the place that we are right now. We were told from a very young age that we should expect that she was going to be completely dependent on us, that she was going to be at home, she wasn't going to hold a job, all of these types of things that were, we weren't going to be like at 3 and 4 years old saying that's never going to be a possibility for her. When I think about that and now, I mean, it's just so amazing what she's been able to do.